Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into a playoff Festivus week. For those of you checking us out on our YouTube channel or our video cam at WNSTV, no purple lights other than the magma. We've had good luck with this since we got this this year. We went from the black magma to the purple magma, so things are working out with Sporticulture. And we're going around the Beltway this week and talking to some of our friends. Lou Weinkam's one of our pals over in Catonsville, one of our supporters to his great family law practice over there, as well as from time to time bringing me meatballs and delicious pizza and a bookmaker salad over there at Franco's on Frederick Road. I was over at 818 last week. My wife and I took a little walk. You guys call it the avenue, the road? What is the main drag in Catonsville called there?
Just probably Main Street.
Main Street.
Yeah, or road, Frederick Road. Yeah,
the road. They don't call it because in Hamden it's the avenue, right?
Yeah, right.
And I don't know what we called it in Highlandtown. You know, we just called it like, up on the road, up on the highway. I don't know, but wherever it is out in Catonsville, appreciate you coming by. Everybody had a late night Sunday night, right? Was it Browns or Steelers? Steelers or Browns? I didn't have a preference, but we are going to Buffalo this week. And I guess the real shame of this is we can't sort of congregate and all get together and all this. I'm trying to think, like, whoever wins a Super Bowl won't have a parade.
Yeah, no doubt. I kind of felt bad for the Buffalo fans because I know they've been starving for, a victory for 24, whatever the number of years it was. And, here they have this great game and the fans aren't able to be there to celebrate it. But I'm sure the town was rocking. And I visited Buffalo twice and I thought that was a great town. I had a terrific time.
Well, the Titans, we've got so much history there, right? And these young kids sliding out on the logo, they don't know anything about Eddie George and Ray Lewis and Steve McNair. And I do, going back to those battles 20 years ago. I was kind of taken aback last week talking to the Tennessee people. The last playoff game they had in Tennessee was in 2009 when we went down there and beat them with Matt Stover. Now we just beat them again. The road team always wins in the Titans-Ravens playoffs, but they haven't won. They haven't hosted an AFC Championship game at home ever. They've rarely played home playoff games. And then you think about what Buffalo's been through. And this week for us, how about this? We've never had an AFC Championship game here. If we win, we're going to be sitting around on Sunday watching the Cleveland. We're going to be rooting for the Browns because if the Browns win, the AFC Championship game would be here and we can't go. So, this is the strangest year. But for the Ravens and for how they've rounded out the last 6 weeks, as Lucas said here earlier this week, Lou, they look to be what they were a year ago. It looks to be like they have the right momentum and a chance here to win 2 football games and go to a Super Bowl. And based on the way they're playing right now, they're an underdog in Buffalo, and I get that, but they don't feel like an underdog to me.
No, I agree. They have rounded into shape very well. In the beginning of the season, I was kind of like, what is going on? They just weren't running the same plays, and I think now they've got great concept on offense. They veer away from it once in a while, but then they get it back. Lamar's playing fantastic. I think the defensive line looked terrific yesterday, and I think everybody's healthy. So I think they got a good chance to beat Buffalo, and it's going to be a tough game up there, I think the Ravens could beat the Chiefs or the Browns in the next game. So things are looking good for them, and we've got as good a shot as anybody, and it's going to be a fun ride. I will tell you a funny story that we usually get chicken wings or watch the game, and every time in the last 2 years we had a big game, we got wings and we lost. So yesterday we didn't have wings. We got Taco Bell.
Conscious decision. You went in, you just said, wings are no good for us.
That's right.
Funny enough, you know what? My wife came back from Wise Markets, and she came in, she showed me wings. She's like, I got wings. And she made wings during the game, and she had a rookie error. I'm going to call my wife out on the radio. I don't do this much, but we don't ever watch games at home, right? We've been at the games the last 17 years of our marriage, mainly. Even on the road, my wife's been to most of the road games. 75% of the road games over 17 years. Before she got sick, she went to all the games. So we never really sit at home and watch games on TV. So we don't have a home menu. Usually I'm in the press box eating whatever Mr. Rooney gives me in Pittsburgh, But this year's been weird. We've had Rofo some weeks. We've had Pizza John's. Literally, a couple weeks ago, Sunday morning, we drove Pizza John's. We've had good luck with Pizza John's. Has been a winning combination for us last couple weeks. But this week, she went to the store and came home, made wings. The wings got done with 4 minutes left to go in the first half. So I'm all sticky-ickied up when Lamar's running into the end zone. I'm like, I got to tweet, So when the wings got good, So I don't know. Maybe she needs to make way. I'm going to Buffalo. I've decided that COVID be damned. I'm going to be very safe. I mean, what's there to get into trouble in Buffalo? Believe me, I've been there before. So I've decided I'm going to go this week. But I think all of us have these stupid stitions. It's my dear friend David Modell. I had his picture out earlier from last week. I found this picture, rummaging through my stuff. Lou, how about this? Where were you when the Ravens won the first Super Bowl, Lou Weinkam? Where were you in Tampa?
I wasn't in Tampa. I was in my house watching the game with the family,
Well, I mean,
which is what I always do.
but that being said, you remember everything. You probably
Oh
had
yeah,
wings that day, right?
yeah, maybe I don't know. Let me say one clarification. We got Taco Bell, which I'm not a big Taco Bell fan. Sorry, Taco Bell, but it was the reverse because usually we have a vegetable tray. My wife would make some guacamole, she does an outstanding job with that, and we have a homemade stuff. So I didn't want anybody to get the impression because usually we do have the homemade stuff. We went off the charts yesterday, and unfortunately for me now I'm stuck with that for the next
Oh
three
no, you're
weeks.
going all in on this.
I'm gonna
This
stay with
guy,
it.
listen, I've been plugging David all week because I love David. So I'm gonna hold David's picture up. There's a picture that I found rummaging through my stuff of David and Coach literally walking the same place that the Mayflowers went out. Like that
Oh,
would be,
okay, got it.
that would be the reference there. That same picture that the Mayflower vans took. This is the same picture of David carrying the trophy out, right?
Yeah.
So, I thought back to 20 years ago. This was the most superstitious man on earth. I told the greatest story last week about him taking my wife and I out on a Sunday morning to the pharmacist. My wife's diabetic; she needs some stuff, and she forgot on a trip. We ran out. He took us, and he said, "If we lose, I'll never do anything with you ever again on the campaign." We lost. Chris Redman went out, lost, or whatever it was, or Kyle Bowler. I don't know what it was. Back, it was 20 years ago. And but the superstitions, man. My superstition, Lou, is in 2006. When the Ravens were awesome, right? I mean, that was the McNair year. We had a bye. We lost to the Colts. Remember, it was talking about
Yep.
the Mayflowers, right?
All field goals.
That was the lowest. My wife, we finally had video that year, like with a little video camera that would work. She has a video of me blubbering, looking over the city at like 1 a.m, like, we lost. I can't believe, and I wasn't even drunk. I mean, like it wasn't like that. So that time I got all worked up, and the station was beating like a drum, and we were the only game in town doing AM. I went out and bought like 15 sets of these purple rope lights. I ordered them on the internet, the new internet, back in 2006. And I had purple floodlights in all my windows. I hung them all up. It was a friggin' mess with tape and stuff afterward. We had little, and now I have like 15 sets of purple floodlights. And they've been in the closet out at the station for years. I didn't even break them out there. And I have like 1 or 2 sets I've broken out for a Christmas here and again, back when Joe Flacco was around. I say back when Joe Flacco was around, but it was 7, 8 years ago now, right? So these lights have sat out. I didn't break them out. My wife got cancer. We didn't go to the playoffs. Flacco left. We stunk, all that. Last year, I found them all. And I'm like, you know what? Number 1 seed, Lamar, just beat Seattle, beat LA. I broke out all the lights. Not good. I wore them. If you did the show with me last year, I wore purple floodlights all week. I plugged them in, and I was electric purple all week. And then we went out and laid a turd. Now I'm like, I had the purple lights this weekend. When I found this, I found all the purple lights. And I'm like, I'm putting the whammy on that. So same thing you did with your whammy. Now you got to eat. I guess my wife has to make me wings in the middle of the second quarter. I'll be in Buffalo, though. Think about wings in Buffalo, maybe,
Where the Anchor Bar?
I'm going to the Anchor. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to smuggle Anchor Bar wings in, and I'm going to make wings my new thing. Lou Weinkamp's here. Tell everybody what you do besides talk sports with me and give me incredible bookmaker salads and meatballs and delicious pizza out there at Franco's.
Right.
Family law, right? And the first part of the year, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to expand upon what you saw in America this week, but family law and people thinking wills and the tough decisions that people have to make in life that maybe are easier if you just come over and see you, put your feet up and say, this is what I want, right?
Yeah, I think that in the end of the year, the beginning of each year, people should look at their financial picture. And one of the things they should do is get out their estate planning documents and review them to see if they're up to date. I can't tell you how many clients have come in and say, yeah, I have a will, I have a power of attorney, I have a medical directive. And I said, okay, let me take a look. Well, I can't find it. So one of the things is if you can't find it, you don't have it because you need to have the originals. Number two, a lot of
So if
people
there's
have
draft on it in red, no good.
no good. Unsigned, no good. Even photocopied, no good. Okay, so you need
What
to have
about if I wrote something down on a sheet of paper, like here in my strategic factory, and I just wrote down, to whom it concerns, I give all my money to Lou.
well, yeah, that sounds good, but that'll be valid, but it wouldn't be valid. It'd be good, but it wouldn't be valid. Let's put it that way. No, so
What
yeah,
makes it valid? Seriously,
yes.
from a the state having a documentation of it before, right?
Well, yeah. So one of the things is for a will, you have to have two people witness it at the same time, and they cannot be beneficiaries of the will or have an interest in the will being overturned. So you have to have independent witnesses who must view that signature at the same time. So that's the sole commandment for the will to be
And it's been
valid.
that way, like as much as we talk about 1776 and what's going on in this country, that's it's been that way forever. Like two
And
witnesses were, I'm sure in the 1800s, that's probably what the rule was,
I
right?
would think I would go back and say that probably was correct. It seems
It's
like
just
that
been
would be this.
forever.
It is
That's been the
forever.
way it is.
Yes. So a lot of people, they think, oh, I wrote this out. This is what we're going to do. No, that's not. That's not correct. So I do think everybody should pull out their stuff, make sure it's valid, make sure that it doesn't need updating. Some people have and say, wow, I did this when my kids were 5 years old. They're 35 years old, and they have their brother-in-law as the trustee, and it's just not valid anymore. So there's a lot of reasons to look it over. And then also double check your power of attorney to make sure it's notarized and to make sure it's in the proper form. The power of attorney and the medical directive, i.e., living will, are controlled by the state of Maryland, and they have to have specific language in there. People will print them off the internet, get them at a bookstore. Those forms are most likely not valid. So I would have your attorney double check any of those things just to make sure that you have valid documents. You have time. You most likely shut in for the time the next couple of months. Take a few moments out, review them, and make sure that their just documents are good.
When people come in and see you sort of naked, right? They don't have any of this stuff. What are the other things you structurally tell them that they should have, other than obviously ID, insurance, whatever normal sort of things people would have, but things they might not be thinking about?
One of the things that I advise them is the gifting. So if they're in a position where they can make gifts, they can do up to $15,000 per person per year, and that's a clarification because you could make a gift on December 31st of 15,000, and you could do another one on January 1st. So you can't do it on January 1st and say it was back for 2020. You have to do it in that calendar year, and that's per person. So if you have a spouse and you have a child, you can give 15,000, and your spouse can give 15,000. So you can essentially do 30,000 for that person.
I learned so much on this show, man. I had Leonard Raskin on last week, and Leonard handles money. He's Raskin Global, one of my dear buddies. And we talk football, and we goof around, and his kid's out in Ohio State, so he's all worked up this week about the championship. And he said something to me last week that was cool because I was talking about, working at the paper back 30 years ago and how my college fund worked, that there's tax law that employers can pay down their employees tax credit, and both of them get a tax credit for. You know what I mean? Like, so there's all of these sort of, I'm gonna call them loopholes, but just sort of like little nuggets or best practices or little things that smart people know about. And I think that's why people do seek out legal advice, Lou. I think when I come to a guy like you, it's not just, give me a sheet of paper and a will. It's sort of like, well, what else do you know that I don't know that maybe, could be really, really helpful from a tax benefit or just a, sort of practical life advice?
Well, there's been a big change in the 30 years that I've been practicing law, and with the affirmation of the online services, and people say, well, I can just do a will and I can put my name on it, and then they miss
Well, you
out.
were led to believe you printed out off the internet, right? I mean,
Correct.
I would be the guy printing it out off the internet and always wondering whether it was really any good or not.
Right, and that happens, and some people, they outsmart themselves, and they try to save $400 in a will, and they cost themselves $4,000 in taxes by not putting in the proper clauses. But the biggest thing I would say to see an attorney is, and to see an attorney's looking out for you, is that you'll get the information that you need. It's not really that difficult to put the paperwork together as far as documentation, but the importance behind the meaning behind the words is really what you're paying for, to make sure you're signing it properly, make sure that you're putting the proper clauses in there, making sure that you're using the proper forms. So doing the words on the paper, we can do that. We can do that fairly quickly with the way the processors are now. but putting information behind it is critical, and I think that's what people really need to do. And I do try to tell people when they come in about this gifting. I also talk about deeds, just to make sure that they know, because it's not common language. You don't go out there and talk about those kind of things with your neighbors. You might talk about a will, you might talk about a power of attorney, but you don't talk about your deed too much, and protecting it from the nursing homes and things of that nature.
Lou Weinkam here. It's Weinkam and Weinkam. Areas of practice up online. You go to weinkam.com, Weinkam. Areas of practice, estate planning, estate administration, guardianship, and elder law and medical assistance. Anybody needs some help out there, you can find them 410-744-3256. They are in Catonsville. I'm going to ask Moeller, because he's sort of the mayor of Catonsville without being, what do you call it? Do you call it the road, the avenue, the strip? I'm going to ask 10 Catonsville people in a 21228 and figure it out.
I'll say my vote's just, people just call it Frederick Road.
Frederick Road. Up on Frederick Road.
Yep, that's it.
Up on Frederick Road. Okay.
That's what I would say.
Well, you're over off Frederick Road or up on Frederick Road where all the good stuff is. I am going to get out there this week because there's nothing that's going to curse me either way with this Buffalo thing, by stopping by Franco's and get some meatballs. I'm in the mood for a bookmaker. Your dressing, I don't know what secret sauce you got on the dressing, but the dressings, that's what I'm into right now because I'm mixing in a salad. I ate too much during the holiday. I had too many cookies. I had too much ice cream. I had all of that. Too much ham. So now I'm trying to slender down a little bit. So I'm going salad here. I'm going to have some wings this week, but I'm going to come out and visit you at Franco's.
Yeah, that'd be great. Bookie salad's always a good call. The other meal that I always recommend out there is the shrimp and crab pomodoro. I know your wife's not into the seafood, but that shrimp and crab pomodoro is, again,
let me tell you what. I'm going to give a free Catonsville plug to my friends at Fadley's. On Friday, I had a Fadley's crab cake as a victory on Sunday, a victory thing. But on Friday, I went to Fadley's, and I broadcast in there 100 times. We had governors in there, mayors in there. We've had it all, right? And I've never walked out of there with a piece of fish. It's just true. My wife doesn't love seafood, love it, even though she's from New England. I brought back 2 big crab cakes. I brought back a beautiful bronzini.
Yep,
Bronzini. Yeah.
Bronzini. Yep.
Bronzini. And then she made me bring home some steak fish because it was beautiful. My mom used to make it. And we had fish all weekend, and the Ravens won. So I'm going to go sell that to my wife now. She's got to start eating your crab and shrimp pommes. She came to me and brought me the crab cake when Lamar was doing his postgame. And I'm thinking, well, it sucks not being at the game. It sucks not being in Nashville, whatever. But this doesn't suck being on the couch 5 minutes after the game watching the press conference having a crab cake, right? Yeah. She brought me a beer, too. I had a Guinness. So I'm sitting there. She clipped a little piece of my crab cake, and she put it on a cracker with a little cocktail sauce that she whipped up because I forgot to get the cocktail sauce. And I watched her eat crab cake on a cracker, and she went, So I still might get her out there for crab and shrimp. Since she's had her transplant, a lot's changed. I think she likes fish now. That's what I think. That's my vote.
Well, I'm a big seafood guy, so that's what I always like.
I'm a seafood guy. I see it and I eat it, even if it's Taco Bell.
Yeah, that bronzini. We had a special bronzini last year at Franco's, which was out of this world.
Well, how do you do it? Did you do it with a lemon and
It was just into tomato. It was in the tomato sauce, kind of over top of it, and it was the chefs did an amazing job with it, and it was delicious.
When the Ravens get eliminated and we settle democracy in this country, I'm just going to talk about food when it's all over. Because I discovered capers maybe about 10 years ago. I'm 52. My mom didn't have capers. We're from Dundalk. You know what I mean? I didn't know what the hell a caper was. And I started eating capers. And, salmon and capers, I just have always sort of avoided it or thought I wanted to avoid it. And chicken piccata kind of came into my life, right? And then capers started to come into my life. And then I started adding capers to a chicken cacciatore or different type of tomato dishes. I'm addicted to capers now. So there's a little thing there. So when you make fish with capers, so if you do that bronzy with the capers, all over it. My wife will eat it. My wife's starting to eat fish. I'm going to get her out. We're going to get some seafood. I'm going to see you over Franco's. You can see my friend Lou Weinkam. You can find him out in Catonsville, in the Ville, 410-744-3256 for any of your professional law needs, family law, right there in the 21228, and some football talk as well. I want to give you a little space here as a guy who went to law school. I don't know if you studied constitutional law, but I'm just going to assume you did because you're a lawyer. You're smarter than me. And all my guests are, by the way. I try to get them all be smarter than me. Where were you Wednesday? Give me a little breakdown of this because I think much like when the Challenger exploded or where you were when Kennedy was shot and I wasn't here yet or whatever. Wednesday's going to be a day we're never going to forget as Americans, and I hope we never forget it. I hope it never repeats itself.
Yeah, well, let me give you first. I have to recover because you mentioned constitutional law, and if you're a law student, you hear about con law, it kind of throws you back into, you quiver a little bit. So I'm
Is
just
that
going to read.
101? Is that kind
Yeah,
of what?
that's 101. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrendous. It was horrendous. It was horrendous. So I'm trying to recover, but I will recover.
What was
But
horrendous about it?
well, the thing about law school, when I went to law school, was you're in a room. There's maybe 100 people. You
What
have
year is
to.
this? You went to law school. Where'd you
I
go?
went in 19. I graduated in 1988, so I started in 1985.
And you went where?
I went to Capital University in Columbus, Ohio. and, and,
Wow.
and
Okay.
so
All right.
and so I was, an average student at best, and you'd have 100 students in your class, and you'd have to eat. You'd have 5 classes a week, but you'd have to read 100 pages of material every night for every class. And so you would have to go in the next day, and the teacher would just say, "Mr. Weinkam, what do you think about, you know, this happened on, in
This
part of the."
theory, right?
Yeah. And so you'd have to know all of it, but they'd only ask you one piece. So you had to make sure you knew everything because you didn't know what piece they were going to ask you. And at the end of the day, it's nerve-wracking because you don't embarrass yourself in front of other people, and I'm sure I did many a times, but it's just nerve-wracking to be like you're always on edge. Are you going to get called on? Are you going to get called on? Are you going to get called on? And it's every class is like that. So there's 5 classes, and each
Well, it
night you're
prepares
reading.
you to go be a lawyer, right? It shouldn't be easy. If it
It's
was easy
true.
being a lawyer, I'd be one.
Well, it does weed people out. So you look at your freshman, your first, what they call them 1Ls, and you start out with 100 people, and then after the first semester, there's only 80 people, and then after the end of the first year, there's only 50 people, and then really law school after the first year, the next 2 years are not too bad. They don't try to make you miserable. They figure you got past the first year, they want you to,
It's boot
they want
camp.
you to, yeah, they want you to graduate at that point. But that first year, you're just, I'm 22 years old. I don't know what I'm doing. I would read everything every night, would know everything, but then when I got into class, I would draw a blank.
Well, the big thing is you understand what you're reading too, right? Like, so, like for me, if I would have done pre-med, like not understanding science well enough, right? Like, so give me Wednesday for you as a guy
Yeah.
who has studied law, loves this country. Obviously, we all do. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I don't even know which way you vote, one way or another. I mean, people guessed it that I vote a certain way. I have voted for Democrats and Republicans and independents and probably Ross Perot somewhere in there before it was all over with, right? So,
Yeah.
but Wednesday should be unacceptable to everyone in this country.
Well, yeah. So Wednesday, I was here at work, and I'm just checking my look at my text, and my son lives over in DC, and there's a text on the group family chat that says, "Hey Dom, be careful." And I'm like, uh, what? So I got on the phone. What's going on? And I think my daughter Gretchen said, "Oh, there's Capitol was taken over. There's riots." And I was like, "Wow, okay." So I got on the phone, talked to Dominic, who lives over there, and he said, he's staying in, etc. And I got on, and started watching the things. Now, when I got this is about 4 or 5 o'clock.
Oh my God, you
All
were
the
way
things
late
have
to the
passed.
party.
I
Yeah.
was way late to the party, absolutely. And I
Good
was
for
just
you
working,
to
and I
some
was
degree
working.
because
I was working.
everything stopped for me. Like
Yeah.
everything. I sat on the couch at 1 o'clock and all hell broke loose.
Yeah, I would have watched it and been amazed by it because there are certain things like I remember when Reagan got shot, and there's different things. I remember when Len Dias passed away. I knew all those certain things I do remember where I was and what happened. So I got home and I checked it out, but by then all the things were really over. But I was talking to one of my other sons on Saturday, and he said that he found like live streaming versions, which when you watch the TV news, you're watching what the TV wants you to see. But he had people who were videotaping their phones and they were broadcasting it out, and he just was amazed at how the live, actual, unedited versions of what was going on over there. And it is a horrible situation. Our country's, and what you're asking on political eyes, I'm like, I consider myself a middle of the road person, which I
And
think a
most
lot of,
are, by the way. Don and I always say that. Like most people are in the middle. They
well, I've
are.
been saying this for 50 years that there's 10% on one side, 10% on one side, and then there's 80% of the country who just kind of is like, we want some things this way. We're sick of all these things. And honestly, I thought, and I haven't voted for anybody who won president or lost. I've been independent since Ross Perot. I was a Ross Perot guy then, and I picked somebody on the ballot who's just maybe even a nobody because I just cast my vote to say I'm upset with the choices that we have, and I'm picking somebody out who is a third party. Even I know they can't win, but it's more or less a protest vote out there. So I think that people are looking not in the middle, and I think that's where most people are in the country. And all the stuff that's going on, we need to work with things that are bad. We need to figure out ways to make them better. And, we can't, extremist on every side is not going to work. But I do think there are ways that, we have a great country and a great history. And I do think things can get repaired and things can get fixed. But it's going to have to be somebody from the middle is going to have to do it one day.
Lou, the thing doing Baltimore Positive 2 years ago, and it was 2 years ago this week, literally, that I went out and sat in Don Moeller's, lounge, and we talked about doing this thing. And the one thing that I've been struck by, and the one thing I told my wife when I started to do it, I'm like, I'm going to meet so many good people from doing this. You know what I mean? Like, you think about people that have done wrong that we've had on the show. Sheila Dixon, as an example, who was running last year. We had her on. After spending an hour and a half with her, I could see her intellect. I could see her, her things that she wanted to get done, things that she had real vision about, things that she had seen happen in 30, 40 years of being in the city. So talking to people, even people who do wrong or have done wrong one way or another, I have just found so many people. We had Tom Quirk on a couple of weeks. We had Johnny O on last week. I mean, you're right on the border. I had Calvin Ball on last week. These people that have dedicated their lives. I mean, Johnny O was teaching history. So was Don. We were talking about constitutional history, the history of this country last week on the show, because I think there are a lot of good people who run for office, and I guess I didn't realize that, or I didn't get to know more of them over the course of time to say, let's focus on getting good people who want to serve, and whether that's police chiefs or fire chiefs, and we've had them on as well, or, whether that's people in the community, but good people running for office, I think, is so important. And I think if there's anything 2 years into this, after now having seen an insurrection and moving my life from sports into more grown-up conversations, it's just that leadership is so important. Character and honesty and integrity are so important. And we need to continue to strive to have people lead us that are like that. And until we get that, we're going to have this. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. No, I've coached a lot of sports, and I'm still coaching at Catesville High School lacrosse. And one of the big things that I learned 4 or 5 years ago was that people will not follow you unless they know that you care. And that's the statement, I think, from Roosevelt. The latest one I got it from was Nick Saban. But if people know that you care, they will follow you. And so that's the main thing I established in coaching the first week, is to let the kids know I'm not out there telling you what you're doing wrong or right because I want to make you miserable. I'm telling you because I want you to get better, and I care about you going on from JV to get up to the varsity level. So when my first year coaching, I had a couple of kids that were like, they went to the head coach and said, Coach Lou's really on us. He's on us. He's on us. So I said, okay, I pulled him aside and I said, look, guys, I only want you guys to be better so that you could play on varsity one day. And then since that time, I was close with those guys. We got to be really good friends. And so I do make it sure, and I think our leadership needs to know that they care, that they can show that they care about the constituents, and there's not agendas, but just if people can see that somebody cares, I think we'll be in a better place.
I was once given a card by Dick Vermeil that had a phrase about, and he leaned into me, like a coach would when he sat with me selling some wine at Super Bowl, talking that phrase, like they won't care until they know you care, right? Like
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. So I'm a big quote person. I've been that since I was little. I would always read Bartlett's quotations, and I have a lot of those out there.
You got any John Wooden books? I have a
Oh my
whole
gosh.
stack of John Wooden. I'm a Wooden guy.
Yeah, I'm absolutely got them all. And
be unconcerned with your reputation. Be concerned with your character. Your character,
yes,
who you
absolutely.
really are. Your right. There you go. I can go
Good
through
stuff.
all those. Right.
Yeah. No, he's the top.
You got the pyramid.
Got the pyramid. Yep.
By the way, I once had, and
I did meet him one time too.
I'm not going to out this guy because, I don't like the guy, so I'm not even going to say his name. But he went to UCLA, and he was an athlete. And I had him on the show, and I mentioned the wooden pyramid, and he'd never heard of it.
Wow.
And I'm like, how do you walk into UCLA, and that's not the first thing that's the holy grail for 52 years of all the things I've ever studied. The wooden pyramid of success is, I'll take that over anything, right? Literally.
Well, yeah, and I do steal a lot of my best things are things that are stolen from other people. And the other thing I do the first
borrowed.
Okay, well, borrow. Yeah, okay, borrow. I borrow from other people much smarter than me, but I do have the kids tie their shoes The very first
That's
practice.
wooden.
Yes. And it's
Do you
funny
have
that
them put the sock on?
I have them do everything. I said, I checked their stuff. I said, look, I'm just checking to make sure because you guys, if you have a loose shoe, you're going to roll an ankle, you're going to do blah, blah, blah.
No,
And short,
blister was his 1940s.
well, blisters, yeah.
Blister, you're gonna get a blister.
Well, yeah, no, and it's up, and the kids look at me a little nutty, and I'm like, you know what? And you got to make sure that you don't, do this. So one kid, I did it for a couple weeks, and I stopped doing it every day because I figured, okay, and this kid rolled his ankle, and I looked down, and the shoes were all untied. So I had to call everybody over and said, look, here's what happens. You cannot have your shoes untied. Tie them properly, put your socks on properly, and
And
this
it
won't
might
happen.
be the first time they've ever been beaten up by a coach ever about tying their shoes and socks, right? Because it is a wooden thing. Unless you know about wooden, you wouldn't do that. They don't know it's wooden. You know it's wooden, right?
Yeah. Well, they don't know him, and
Harbaugh's always doing this with his players. His players
Yeah.
don't check the internet, so they have no idea what's going on. So
Right.
he could bring back Invictus.
What I do is I post a lot of quotes in the locker room, and then I put who they are and what they did. And one of the ones I post in the locker room is from Bear Bryant. It says, "Everyone has the will to win. Everyone doesn't have the will to prepare." And then I say Bear Bryant, who they don't know what it is. Then I say winner of 5 national championships, and then they might, pick up on it a little bit.
I went to Alabama one time for a game. 20 years, they're playing UCLA, as a matter of fact. 20 years ago, I went down there for a game, and I'm sitting up in the press box. And 10 minutes, I went through the Bear Bryant Museum, the Houndstooth, all that. It did all that. He comes on. There's 80,000 people in there. It's crazy down in Tuscaloosa, and he's got this quote. And they have an old interview with him. He says, "I ain't never been nothing but a winner," and like the place just is crazy. Alabama. I hope they lose. We're doing this on the front end. I hope Ohio State loses too. So, I want to be equal. You went to school in Columbus. Did you love or hate Ohio State?
I didn't care about Ohio State when I was little.
Okay.
I was a big Archie Griffin fan when I was in the
and Cornelius Green.
Cornelius Green. Yep, all those guys, and the safety Neil Colsey was their safety.
They were good. 73, 74.
Yeah, I love those guys. And but no, well, the funny thing about the first week, I'm walking down to Columbus and I see everybody's wearing their ties and shirts and suits, and I'm like, wow, is there like? So I stopped this older guy and I said, why are you guys all dressed up? He goes, the Buckeyes are playing, or the Bucks are playing. I'm like, the Bucks? What is the Bucks? He looked at me and said, where are you from, boy? And I said, well, I'm from Maryland. I didn't really because Ohio State Buckeyes. I said, oh, I get it. But back then, this is '85. All the old guys had their shirts on, and I called it red and gray, and he looked at me like it's scarlet and gray. I said, okay, yeah, okay, scarlet and gray. And then he kind of dismissed me as some kind of neophyte, which of course I was.
Were they playing Hang On Sloopy back then or no?
Yes, they were. That's when it started, actually.
Okay.
It started right around that time. And my wife and I did go to a game, and it was an amazing atmosphere at the old shoe before they closed it in. And it was a good experience to go to that stadium, and they love their Buckeyes. Of course, being right downtown in Columbus, it was a big deal.
I've never been to a game there. I've been to the Schottenstein Center. I saw Buffett there, so I toured it a little bit. Billick's out there now, living in Columbus with his daughters, and the Buckeyes this week. I did a lot of college football games 20 years ago when I first started traveling. The Ravens game, I went to all the stadiums in the South. By the time sort of the Midwestern thing has happened here with the Terps and thinking about jetting off to the big house or running and catching a Northwestern game when I'm in Chicago, I haven't done it. I did see the Terps play in Florida State, when the Ravens played in Jacksonville. I saw games in Tennessee when the Ravens played in Nashville. I've seen games in Mississippi. I've seen games in Alabama. I've seen games in Auburn, Georgia. But I don't know, man. I haven't been to I haven't done Touchdown Jesus. I haven't been to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I haven't been to any of those.
I've been to Michigan, and that stadium's built underground, so you don't even see it until you get there because it's all built down. And Schottenstein is the name of a law firm in Columbus, probably one of the biggest ones. And I did play at that arena. We had a Capital University challenge to Ohio State law school students in a match, so we got to play in the arena, and we got crushed because we thought we were good. We're small Capital University. We thought we had some good basketball players, but
No.
Ohio State just rolled out everybody.
They had more students. I think they had a higher enrollment.
Well, they just crushed us. But it was fun.
You had higher tuition. They had higher enrollment.
Yeah, exactly. But it was I did make a three-pointer that time. That was the only thing, but it was a bank, so they still counted it. But
if you remember 35 years later, it was good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have to remember that. I remember all my big shots. Don't worry. But there's so few of them I can remember them.
Lou Weinkam joining us here. You can find him certainly over in Catonsville anytime, anywhere. Drop by Franco's, get some meatballs. Hey, I hope we get together. The next time we get together, the Ravens are going to the championship game, Super Bowl, whatever. And I hope to make your presence over there in Catonsville and enjoy a bookmaker salad with you sometime soon.
Nestor, thank you. And one last thing. If you want to grab those floodlights and give them to me, I'll hold them and secure them so you're not wearing them, using them, anything you need to secure that they're not being used for this week.
Do you want them?
No, I don't want. I want to keep you from using them. Is what I'm saying.
No. They're. I've been out Station 3. We're cleaning up the radio station, doing some stuff, and I've been in my basement. Finding old pictures, digitizing my parents' wedding. That's what I've been doing the last month, just passing time during a plague, right? During the holidays, where I would be running 6 buses to Buffalo on Saturday night, right? I'd be like making money. I would be having fun. We would be having wings. We would be insulting the Bills. I got time on my hands. So I have seen those lights 5 times, Lou, and I've gone I've reached for them, and I'm like, they're purple. They'll look good in here. It'll look like – look, listen. This is all I need. My friends at Sporticulture got me the Magma lamp. We're 1-0 in the playoffs with the Magma lamp up. This is the good luck charm. We're 1-0 with me eating wings with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. We're 1-0 with you eating Taco Hell.
Yep.
Yo quiero. Run for the border. Do whatever you have to do. Okay.
I kind of feel like you're Lord of the Rings. You got to get that floodlights into the thing and get rid of the curse.
Well, you said something about, I said run for the border and Taco Bell. I said to my wife, I said, the only reason you would ever go to Buffalo is to cross the border to go to Toronto.
Yeah.
Orchard Park, Saturday night, I'll be freezing my ass off. Think about me, okay?
You got it, brother.
Lou Weinkam joining us. Weinkam and Weinkam. You can find them 410-744-3256. They're out in Catonsville taking care of your law needs and a good friend if you need one down the street to take care of your family law. Our friends at Weinkam and Weinkam in Catonsville. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, anywhere the internet takes me and the wind blows me to Buffalo, hopefully without a lake effect snow. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop washing our hands, wearing a mask, and talking Baltimore positive